Zoom porting into this virtual world with you on social media, positive use of technology to share our hearts, to share some perspective, some wisdom. And I'm excited to share my beloved soul sister, one of my nearest and dearest, just my big cat lioness sister, Elayne Kalila Doughty. Welcome, Elayne Kalila.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Wonderful to be here
Hello.
with you. Zoom porting, I like that.
Yeah, it's so fun. It's so yeah, it's so fun to introduce you to my friends, and we are going to post this on Instagram as well, and you'll be introduced to those friends over there after this. So the reason we're coming in today is because Elayne and I call her Kalila, so I'm just going to stick with it. Kalila and I have been Priestess sisters for over 10 years in the 13-Moon Mystery School. And we have been sharing ritual space and creating ritual for, oh my God, hundreds upon hundreds, if not even over 1,000 or more women by now. It's like just such an honor, such a blessing, such a joy to share these rituals that most of all, it comes down to the initiation of what you would choose and stepping through portals into greater expansion into the love you truly are, and really recognizing yourself as a whole and sovereign being. This is the nugget of the work, why we do this work. And these ceremonial containers really assist and support women to do that. So I wanted to talk to Elayne Kalila about the power of ritual today,
Yeah.
and a couple other really exciting things that she has going on. And so, first of all, I would just kind of ask you, because you've been in this work even longer. You were one of my original mentors 11 years ago. And I remember the first time I met you and just dropping into what we know now and call empty presence, and just how
Mhm.
much that changed my life. So I guess I would pass the golden ball to you and just talk a little bit about, woof, what is going on in these ritual spaces?
Yeah.
Why is it so powerful?
Mhm. Okay, I'm going to give you all a little nugget here. And the nugget that I want to give you is years and years ago, before I found this work, the 13 Moon Mystery School work, and this sort of container that Eden is now talking about, I worked for years in the theatre. And I worked with theatre as a tool of social healing, of community healing, of personal healing. I was involved in a lot of work through my 20s into my 30s. And one of the things that I learned very, very early on was about the power of ritual and the power of rite of passage. Now, for those of you who don't know this, the original theater came through from the Greek father. His name was Asclepius, and the Asclepian theater was called therapeutics. And it really was the first use of that word in terms of understanding that we could go through these deep, profound processes by creating time out of time, spaces that were demarcated for specific dropping away of our identities and assuming of new identities or new ways of being. What we call rite of passage, what we call transformational work, all yields from this ancient technologies that were Greek and obviously way earlier than that within the shamanic traditions all around the world. So what we're talking about here is not some new age work. We're actually really talking about something that is fundamentally part of our psychic structure as human beings. It's the way in which we have facilitated growth and transformation and healing worldwide in every culture throughout history. So ceremonial space, ritual space, is really defined by this one word that's one of my favorite English words in the language, and it's the word liminality. And a liminal space, what the heck is that? I remember when I first heard that term, I heard it in social theatrics. It was some deep course I was doing at university way back in the day. And a liminal space is a space where we enter in a doorway, a portal. And who we enter in as is laid down at that doorway, and we enter into a mystery. We enter into a space where we become malleable, where we become open, where who we are to become has not yet arisen. And we go on a journey through that space. And when we come to the other end of that experience, the doorway out, the portal out, we are in some way changed. Now, how we are changed, that is not up to any one of us. That is up to the higher power, God, whatever you want to call that source, right? But
Great
right?
mystery, surrender.
Right. But essentially that liminal space is one that we as human beings absolutely need in order for transformation to really happen. We have to be held. This is the nature of what transformation is. And a ceremonial space is a holding space for that death and rebirth process to happen. And if we look at it, we'll see vestiges of holding spaces, therapeutics, coaching, counseling, medicine work, all of these spaces, theater, performance, going to a really amazing show can be that, right? Sometimes a movie can do that for us. We go into the movie theater, we let go of who we are, we become something else through the characters, we're changed, we come out, we are reborn. Right? Literally, when you do that, you're going through that process of death and rebirth. And we are wired for this. And in our modern day culture, many of us are yearning for spaces that are held in the depth and integrity that means that the transformation that we can go through is really deeply felt within our being, not just as individuals, but as a society. And we could probably say that right now, we are in one of the most intense portals of liminal possibility that we have ever been in as a civilization, due to the fact that we are going through such incredible accelerated dismantling at this exact moment. And I don't have to go into all of that for you to know what I mean, because we're living it. So the space of ceremony, the space of ritual, the space of intentionally creating a portal space where we get to be changed, we get to drop who we've been and bring a new aspect of self into life. I would say that that's really sorely needed. So that's my little potted history.
Yeah. Wow. That was awesome. I love your intellect and your spirit and this passion that you bring. And I'm aware that this is the place where the weave of psyche and spirit are so strong. And these temple spaces that you've been creating for years offer women this opportunity to really transmute old patterns that no longer serve them, to step through apparent blockages and old small stories over and over and over. So I love the work that we both do. And I know that there's a very powerful turn of the wheel, and most people might not be aware of this particular phrase. In the olden days, before we were in this very kind of commercialized Western kind of ritual of holiday seasons, there were many potent turn of the wheel events that were working with the seasons, with the elements, with nature, with the greater divine holding, very reverent, very honoring, when people were more connected to the earth. And I'd love you to speak a little bit. In the West, we know, okay, Halloween is coming, and some of us might connect it to All Hallows Eve or Day of the Dead in Mexico, but I feel like very few people in our culture really know about this potent, ancient Celtic, pagan turn of the wheel event that you are celebrating, and with your community going into a deep transformational portal because of the potency of this event, Samhain. So please tell us a little bit more about this too.
Awesome. Well, Samhain is one of the high holy days of the Celtic wheel of the year. There are 8 high holy days. 4 are equinoxes and solstices, and then the other 4 are the in-betweens. So you might have heard of Beltane, May Day, being another one of them, or Lammas, which is August 1st. And Samhain is the one that falls on October 31st and is known across the world this time of year known for being the time when the veils begin to thin between the worlds. It's the day of the ancestors. So in Mexico, it's the Day of the Dead. In the Christian calendar, it became All Saints' Day. Right, you can feel the overlays, the strata, right, of history and literally cultural anthropology that leads us into this awareness that there are these cycles of time. And the macro cycle of time is obviously aeons, civilizations, right? The Mayan calendar speaks to this, astrology speaks to this, epochs. And some would say, in fact, many of us would say at this point, that we are at the end point of a civilization. We're at the turn of a wheel. We are in the dissembling, the dismantling of the previous civilization that we've been living in. Just as the Roman civilization rose and fell, the Greek civilization rose and fell, the Egyptians, right? We've had these cycles. So we're in a particular area of the cycle right now where we're changing of ages. There's a changing of the guard, a changing of energy, and we're all feeling it. Like all the systems that happened before no longer seem to be serving us. The structures, the education system, the political system, the healthcare system, the prison system, every system we can think about is deeply and very troublingly flawed at this point, right? We can see it. So that macro system is at a certain turning point. So then if we go and we bring the lens in, the aperture of the lens in, we look at every year, we go through this shift, right? From through this cycle of growth that we grow into something through the year, and then come this time of the year, it's about letting go into the darkness. In the Northern Hemisphere, we're going to be heading into the winter solstice being 21st of December. So these high holy days can be understood as acupuncture points on the skin of Mother's body. What does that mean? It means that they are very powerful power spots for us to gather consciously, to create ritual and ceremony, to mark what has been and what is to come. We mark the shift with the earth shifting because we are cells of her body. We're not separate to her. So when we come together on Samhain, this Samhain, in the Priestess Presence community, we're creating a 4-day ceremony. And it's called Priestess as Sacred Portal Holder. Now, there's a reasoning behind this year, because you may all know, for those of you who are in the United States anyway, that on November 3rd, we're heading into a great turn of the wheel with an election. And I got guidance that with everything that's been going on, this is not just a political statement, but with everything that's going on in our world, that what we need right now is to be listening into how to hold center in the midst of the chaos and madness that many of us are experiencing, whether that be the COVID, the resurgence of that, the rolling shutdowns that are going on all over the world, you know, the whole uprising and dismantling with Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd, and the catalyzing of that, and the questioning of all of the systems of governance through a lensing of white fragility and white supremacy, you know, through to, for us, particularly in Northern California and the West Coast of America, the incredible stress of the fire season that we've been through, the apocalyptic experience with the air, you know, the climate change. I could keep going, right? So we know that we're in chaotic times, and what we need to do when we're in the midst of the chaos is to create spaces where intentionally we are focusing our energy on not just what is being dismantled, but what is to be created. You know, I think there's that tension point, Eden, right? It's like, you know, there's one foot in the old world and one foot reaching out towards the new world, and we are bridging this enormous gap. And so ceremony for me right now, and particularly over Samhain, is to listen to the ancestors, to listen to our own bloodlines and spiritual ancestry and archetypal ancestry that can help guide us into the healing that we need to step through in order to create something new. Because I think we're all clear, there's reparation needed, there's restoration needed. We have to do the work, right, of restoring and repairing our humanity with one another to all of those peoples, particularly people of color, who have experienced such a a level of abuse and violence and murder through the system of racism. And we know this, like we can feel it in every part of our body. We know this is not tenable. We know it doesn't work. So we have to make reparation, but we also need to restore it. We also need to simultaneously be able to actually dream into a new vision. Not one without the other, they both need it. And so ceremonial space is to acknowledge what has been, what is, and to ask what wants to come forward. How do we move forward from here? Because everything that we've created, all of the systems that we have in place right now, they can't be what we create within. You know, there's that beautiful Einstein quote that we all know by now because it's so overused, but the reason it's overused is because it's so freaking true, which is he is coined as saying, you cannot fix the problem with the consciousness that created it. You have to move to a new state of consciousness. So ceremony over Samhain this year is to acknowledge what is, but then to create a space for us collectively to dream into the possibility of what our ancestors would have us bring forward, because it's the day when we get to actually listen to those who came before us, to learn from them, right? To stand on their experience and to bring something new. And so I got real guidance this year to create
so
4-day ceremony. Yeah. And to have all of us who connect with that word priestess to come into connection with one another in a focused space to do some work together. Okay. That's the point. So it's coming. What are we, the 19th today?
So beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So how do people find out about this? I'll post the link in the comments for sure, and then send them to your page to get enrolled. And this is a free offering. Am I correct?
Yeah. It's totally free. And there's a couple of ways. So you can come to priestesspresence.com/portal. And that will bring you to the page where you can register, and I'll give Eden the link for that. You can also take the 5 Faces of Priestess Leadership quiz that will also then auto-enroll you into this, and I'll give Eden a link for that she can put into the comments so that you can do that. And the fun part of that is that the ancestry piece that we're going to be working with is this whole idea of archetypes as our ancestors. So archetypes as an ancestor means that we don't just have blood lineage, right? We don't just have spiritual lineage, but the very form of the archetypal world, the symbolic world, is also our ancestor because it got created through our collective consciousness. That's how archetypes arise, right? So the earth herself is our ancestor. The trees, the stones, the animals, all our ancestors. DNA is our ancestor. Right? It's coded information. So what we're doing is accessing into the great reservoir of human intelligence, if you will, right? To garner our way forward. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to create the wheel anew, right? It's a new version that's going to arise out of our collective. No one person is going to figure this out.
Learn. And we learn how to listen more deeply and listen from our hearts and surrender that structural kind of grip of the ego mind to what we think is reality, and enter through that courageous leap into the void, like you said, the liminal space. So I'm so glad you're creating this portal, especially for people, and I just want to put it out there, people that might not already resonate with being identified as a priestess. That being said, they might identify with being a light worker, a mystic, a starseed. I know a lot of my community, they know that they're here for the big shifting. They know they're here for the big changes on earth right now. And no matter what you call yourself, your heart knows if there's resonance. So I would encourage everyone, and you know, I don't know if this is it a gender specific event? Can men participate, or is it a women's only event?
Men participate, absolutely. Feel free to. It is loaded towards the feminine. That's just the work that we've been doing. We're still waiting for the 5 Faces of Priest leadership. maybe someone needs to create that.
Yes.
Obviously we need you, our brothers.
Yes, please, brothers.
Yes. We keep waiting for the men to come in and create these.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah,
definitely do this work together.
Yep, absolutely.
It's time to do this work together, side by side. I'm very passionate about
Yeah, I know you are, darling, and
that.
I'm really, really down for that. And I think that there's definitely a movement, and there will be more and more incorporation as we go forward, right? As we
Beautiful.
repair the relationship internally with our internal masculine, we begin to have space for the
Yes.
external masculine. So that's part of the work that we're involved in. Yeah. What I want to say in closing, Eden, is there's this, one of the things that I've been hearing, sort of whispering, in the background as I've been listening, is this place where we are in a collective initiation, and we're also in a collective need of a rite of passage. And the rite of passage that we are collectively needing is one where we are spiritually matured through a process. And I really, really honestly, at the deepest level of my being, believe that that's what's attempting to happen in the chrysalis and the cocoon of COVID, in this extraordinary dismantling that's going on, is this being we seem to be separate entities of, this consciousness that we are fractals of, right, is attempting at this moment to evolve itself to become a new version, a new expression of what it really means to be human. And I think we're all part of that. And these ceremonial spaces are really about creating an opportunity for us to come together with the collective body to experience and feel that together. And there's something very, very powerful.
Yeah, it's so powerful together.
Right?
Yeah.
And we come to realize that we are part of.
I know this is.
Right.
I have a little lag on my connection where I'm staying here, as a little bit slow internet. So I agree that there's a power in the coherency. I agree that when we come together in these ceremonial containers, the power of our shared prayer. I know that people that meditate together drop deeper immediately in groups. They've done experiments where a large group of meditators gathered and the crime rate went down in the whole city. It's like there's a morphogenetic field. And in these coherent ceremonial spaces, the power and the depth of the alchemy, of the inner alchemy, when you're working with these archetypes and listening deeply into the mystery together, it's so expansive, it's so amplified. So I highly, highly suggest, for those of you who are identifying and resonating and saying, yes, I'm part of this great shifting. I love what our fellow wizard brother over in England, or maybe he's in Scotland, Richard Rudd, talks about this great turning and this leap from the age of Homo sapien that has been putting the head and the ego mind, the knowing man, on the altar. And we see how far that's gotten us with our industrial age and our technology. And now we've come to the point where the shadow of that is this polarity, duality consciousness of the mind. The ego mind will constantly keep us in the illusion of separation and comparison. So it's time to give our minds to our hearts and awaken to the higher octave of our DNA, and to transmute those shadow frequencies into our gifts, our genius, and to arise into this new hologenesis that you're speaking about, this initiatory leap into being changed. And some call it, I think Richard Rudd calls it Homo Sanctus. Some call it Homo Luminos. It is really about the age of the heart. And it's very much in synergy with the age of Aquarius and the great age of enlightenment, the Satya Yuga that we're entering into. So we are at that birth canal, that dark squeeze where it's painful, and trusting the birthing pains, and joining together to really kind of expand into what's on the other side. Yes. So thank you for this incredible work you're doing. Thank you for shepherding so many. Yeah. Love you so much, sister.
Love you too, darling.
So glad to get to see you today. Love you.
Thank you for
Have a beautiful day. And
you
look below in the comments.
Lovely to see you all.
Love you.
Bye
Bye
for now.
Bye.
Bye.